We are rolling.
All right. Welcome back, Todd.
Yeah, it feels good to be here. Been off for a while, but decided to make my debut coming back here.
He's coming back after he already made his first $1 million.
Yeah, I wish.
That's pretty
my
good.
first 1,000. I'm working on 10,000 next.
Well, there's a lot going on. I mean, we were just talking earlier before we went live, and we had our first execution of 2019 in the great state of Texas.
Very exciting.
Where's my little noisemaker?
Right, yeah. I know, right? Well, it was funny because we were talking about the...
that almost sounded like electricity.
It did, didn't it? The usual fuckery that goes with this is we usually get activists like Mike Farrell, the actor, and
Danny Glover.
Yeah. But we've come to the conclusion because it's cold outside.
Yeah.
That's why they're not outside the prison.
Yeah. Sean Penn ain't got time to come down in no cold.
So. Yeah, it's too cold.
Too cold to be humanitarian.
Well, there you go. That's where we're starting today. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and do a ginger. Look at that. I'm calling her Ginger. Yeah. A Lucy update. As you know, we got a 9.5-week-old golden retriever right now, and were we talking about the hawk last week?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a red-tailed hawk, and it's a big one. There's two of them. It's a full-grown one and a juvenile. And they swoop the yard looking for squirrels and cats and stuff like that.
Small furry animals.
Yeah, which she is right now. And so my wife literally had a meltdown, panic attack over this. It was pretty scary, dude. Yeah. She was like catatonic, like, get your gun out and shoot it. And I'm like... First of all, I'm not shooting up in the air with a gun.
Right.
And
that's probably the first time I've ever heard her say go to guns on something
exactly.
like that before.
Yeah, she's very,
Because it is one of those things where, you know what? Everything is fine until something like that happens, and you're like, okay, now
now I understand the predator-prey concept, and let's balance the scale.
Life's lessons, right? I mean, that's the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
So what I did is I devised this elaborate abatement system for these birds. I went to the local hardware store, bought some paracord, bunch of hook eyes, and some bird netting. Now the package says it's 14 foot by 14 foot, which they lied.
Yeah,
it's like 18 foot by 15 foot. So whoever rolled,
you could hide a tank under that.
You
thing,
could.
Man.
You really
just put some netting on there, and we could. We could fool some spy satellites.
Absolutely, the drones aren't going to see nothing in this yard.
So if a bird actually like flew into it, is there anything that would like capture him? Because the moment you say hooks, I'm like, oh my god, we get to plunge hooks into flying birds.
Yeah, no, there's no hooks. What I used was screw eyes on the porch. So what I did was I basically made a canopy of paracord and just zip tied the bird netting to the paracord.
Okay.
And then I just clipped it off, and I have two sides that kind of hang down, probably not far enough, but enough that if a bird flies into it, it'll impede them.
Yeah.
So what'll happen?
They're not going to get through that thing. That's for sure.
I don't think so. No, they won't get through it. But I'll tell you what, they'll get hung up.
Yeah.
I guarantee a hawk hits that at full
You'll
speed.
be out there with a rake poking at a hawk. I need video of that.
I'm definitely going to annoy some birds, though.
Yeah. So it's funny. So that's really kind of calmed the tribe down here at the house. So she's pretty happy with that. And of course the backyard's starting to look more like a penitentiary play yard with the fencing and everything going in on it. But
I was gonna say we need some sandbags and maybe a machine gun nest that we could set up back there.
I would love to do that. I think the neighbors would have a fit though.
They'll get over it.
But yeah, it's just. But the dog's doing good. She's growing fast. She's she's actually kind of gotten fat in the last 2 weeks.
She was definitely frisky today.
Yeah, this was my first time around her, and it was all belly rubs and teeth, man. She was wanting to chew and play. I got down on the floor with her for about 5 minutes.
That's why I call her Jack Jack. She reminds me of that baby from The Incredibles.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
All
She's
teeth.
A lot like that.
Yeah, she splits up. And then she gets like this morning. So we have this bizarre schedule wrapped around this dog. It's really kind of hard sometimes. So I have the midnight 3 o'clock watch. Oh, my wife has this scheduled out.
You're
man.
on fire watch.
Yeah, I'm on fire watch.
Watch.
Yeah, I'm on fire watch with this dog. And so I get up at midnight and take her out to go to the bathroom, and then come back in at 3 a.m. and take her out. So in the morning, she's all cuddly and wants to cuddle and everything. So I got up this morning at her 3 o'clock. And her neighbors were out of town, so I was letting their dog out too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's been kind of dog watch for me. But anyway, this morning she gets up and she just wanted to cuddle, so we fell asleep in the chair.
Right.
downstairs. And, the big concern is her jumping off and doing stuff, but she didn't. She slept. We both slept in that chair for 2 hours.
I'm always worried I'm going to roll over on my dog when I do that. Yeah, I'm not a stationary sleeper.
Really? Oh, I am. I'm used to that. I mean, we have this big bed, and I sleep on 14 inches of real estate. Just that's all I have is that side of the bed. So it's not really that much fun. But
Michelle, it's like a war zone in there when we're sleeping. I mean, it's a fist fight practically. So
that's funny.
Brutal.
Well, we're always looking for fun stories to talk about, and we had one pop up this morning we thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, speaking of fistfights in bed.
Yeah, this is out of Sand Springs, Oklahoma. It's titled "A Couple's Sexual Game Turned Horribly Wrong This Morning as They Accidentally Burned Down Their House to the Ground with a 75-year-old World War II flamethrower."
What sex games are complete without a flamethrower?
I'm trying to think of what kind of game it would be. First of all, these people are 90-plus years old.
Spin the wheel! Spin the wheel! Light the flames!
I'm telling you.
There's definitely a winner at the end.
I mean, to tell you, that's one way or the other. So I'll just kind of go through the story here really quick. So the 9/11 operator gets a phone call at 11:15 this morning from a 96-year-old man by the name of Maurice Fogarty. She said first she thought she was dealing with pranksters when he told her that he had torched the house with napalm while having sex with his wife. He told me he was penetrating his wife with his M1 as usual, but got too excited and activated the flamethrower. So Mrs. Brown says the explanation actually shocked her for a moment, and it took her almost a minute to realize that it was actually happening.
Right.
She goes, he kept repeating that everything was burning, and all I can hear is his wife screaming behind him. But I still couldn't believe this was real.
Everything is burning, including my penis.
I'm on fire.
I think she's got gonorrhea.
It's sticking to me, and it's burning. How many times have we heard that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Mr. Fogarty's
wife... 72 hours after, though, isn't it?
Right. So they were transported to a hospital and treated for psychological shock caused by the event, but otherwise were uninjured.
So I got a question about that. You wouldn't think somebody would be psychologically shocked that has sex with the flamethrower. I'm thinking, what kind of trauma do you have to cause somebody that's having sex with the flamethrower?
I'm impressed that they're in their 90s. I've got to be honest with you. What'd they catch on fire? There depends.
Exactly. I've got plans. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah,
but.
I hear you. Well, they're saying they won't face any criminal charges, but they're going to have a hard time collecting insurance on this because, of course, accidents started with weapons don't are covered for your policy.
While having sex.
Yeah, so so anyway, that's the story that was out this morning. But what's really interesting about this story is fake news.
Fake news.
It's fake news. As much as there was a fire in a household with an elderly couple and they were rescued, it had no sex involved.
That's the disappointing part.
No flamethrower involved, but it makes for great stories, and it catches...
Very sensationalistic.
It catches a viral wave.
Right.
It literally has blew up the internet, right?
Very, very CNN-esque. I gotta say that's right up there with some of them I've read lately.
And I wonder how many shares that went across any kind of social media.
Huge. It was huge. It was one of the biggest shares of the day.
Wow.
And that just goes in with what we've talked about the last couple of weeks in regards to viral videos and viral news and who's really manipulating what and why are they doing it.
Right.
So we found it pretty interesting that this website particularly carries multiple stories.
There's some good ones.
Because remember that article I shared on the politics page that we have, this private page we're on, and it was about checking your sources.
Right. Yeah.
That outlet shows up on that matrix.
The crystal meth. What tipped us off was the crystal meth babysitter that was breastfeeding in public.
Yes.
While smoking crystal meth.
63-year-old daycare owner breastfed toddlers in public while smoking crystal meth.
That's what I'm looking for in a babysitter.
Yeah, there's another one on this particular website. Yeah. Homeless man's penis snapped in half during frantic sex with a manhole cover.
Ooh.
That had to be in Chicago during the blast, the winter blast.
That's a Pulitzer Prize winner there.
My favorite one is the binge eater hospitalized after gobbling up more than 30 pounds of urinal deodorizers. It reminds me of that scene in Roadhouse where it says in the bathroom,
"Don't eat the mint."
Yeah, please don't eat the big white mint.
Yeah.
Isn't like the Peabody Award something that you award somebody who's a newspaper writer or something?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah,
and find out that I won the award and this was my submission. That
oh man,
the award.
Yeah,
classic.
Yeah, it's everywhere, and it's what even politicians are using it.
Right.
I mean, they're using it in the worst way, and these stories are just getting more and more bizarre.
Well, they write it in such a way that you want to believe it. Kind of like when we were reading the flamethrower sex story. We're wanting to believe that. We have a mental image.
Yeah.
They've painted a picture for us. We want to believe what they are telling us.
Hey, when we threw it out there, how much fun was that?
Oh, it was a blast.
We were like, we're going to talk about this today.
And you can think, and there are people out there going, are there people that are really this fucking stupid?
I think.
Yes, they are.
I have no doubts.
So, that leads us kind of where this whole theme started. And Sam and I were talking yesterday, and there's this cartoon out there, and it has two booths with two lines in it. One line's full of people, another line's empty. And it was captioned, "Comforting Lies and Unpleasant Truths." And, of course, the comforting lies had everybody in the line.
Right.
And the unpleasant truths didn't. And we're kind of living that today. I mean, if you look at the news, there's enough news out there, or put it this way, there's enough storytelling out there.
Correct.
That you can make a story to appease every crowd.
Right.
And that's kind of the sad thing, because it used to be news would be the unpleasant truth.
Right.
The news would tell you things that you didn't know or didn't want to hear or were shocked to hear.
Right.
Nowadays, they're covering that, but they're covering it with fake stories. They're making this shit up. I think even Pelosi said, we know half the stuff we say is not true, but once we get out in media, we don't care.
Sure. Well, like to quote Tyler Durden from the Fight Club.
Yeah.
Some of these stories are so calming that you're able to calm the masses like oxygen does for people in flight, to make them as calm as Hindu cattle.
Right.
Right. That's true. And so we're living in that age. And we kind of look at the motivation of this. Right. And you have a president that ran on a platform of draining the swamp.
Yeah.
And making America great again.
Right.
And so what they've done is they've polarized the country by making those both villainous statements. They've loaded up by calling you bigot, racist.
They attach a bunch of adjectives to it.
Yeah.
That's meant to invoke a response out of you.
Sure. And so what they've done is now they've built the cluster of stories that go around them.
Right.
We were talking earlier about a young man that claimed to have been beaten up by a bunch of MAGA hat wearing people
in Chicago. He checked two of the boxes that were big for him. He was black and he was homosexual.
Mm-hmm.
And allegedly they were shouting homosexual slurs and racial slurs, they were telling him, "This is MAGA country. This is MAGA country."
Right.
And so the cops investigate this and they find out this isn't the case. This guy was not beaten by these people that you are alleging, and now he's had to backtrack the story. He's had to come back. This guy had some celebrity status to him, so it drew some of the attention.
Even though he walks the story back, you're still going to have
it's already out
the
there.
Damage is done.
Yeah, because it really does kind of fit that requirement about if it bleeds, it leads.
Right.
So you can't unring the bell. And
no,
even though
you really
won't have anybody that goes back and gets the real story.
Take the video evidence from the story that y'all just did about the MAGA kid, you know?
Right.
I mean, look at that. That kid's still facing death threats and people are still threatening to kill him.
You're very right.
I mean, the damage is done. It's out there. They did what they set out to do.
But the media really focused in on that. And the one they didn't focus in on was the gentleman beat up by the Antifa guys.
Right. The Marine.
The young Marine that had his ass kicked by a bunch of Antifa guys. That story never made.
Never saw that?
Never saw that. And it's a legit story. It really happened.
Right.
And so, here you go. You have the media. And, of course, we love the media because they give us all kinds of great shit to talk about.
Right.
I mean, if it wasn't for them, we probably wouldn't be able to do some of this stuff because it's just incredible storytelling. You start looking at the top side of it where you go, oh, this stuff is really funny, but it's really sinister. And when you think about the real motives behind it, it's to shape the opinion of the masses, and it's also to discredit whoever doesn't agree with them.
Right.
And that's really kind of the dark, dark, dark side of it. We were talking earlier about using SCOTUS.
Yeah.
How what you basically do is you get the Supreme Court to make rulings on things that are in your favor that paint people in a bad way that probably didn't deserve it.
Right.
And helps move agendas forward. And we got to stop and look at where this is all going. This is all going to where the money's going.
Right.
You got a president that is doing what he said he's going to do.
Right.
Of all the presidents I can remember, he's checking the list off more than any of them.
And that's probably why he faces as much fire as he does.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he's trying to fight the rudder back the other way on
Right.
the ship that's been turning this way for a long,
Sure.
long time.
One of the things that I told Ken when I started looking at information yesterday after our phone call, when I got home, one of the things that I found common in all my searches was whenever you find an article of some kind, whoever the author of the article was, they always seem to tie, the lack of honesty or untruthfulness and put Trump's name in there somehow.
Right.
So
Right.
which is like nobody here seemed to have. There always seemed to be the agenda of always paint this president.
Well, yeah,
in a
so you
poor
can
light.
write the history that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really what it is. Because nowadays, history's not what really happened.
Right.
It's what's recorded.
Right.
Yes,
You
yes.
know, and it's what's been reinterpreted. Because now you're starting to see people write papers about, we'll just talk about Civil War, people from the South during the Civil War,
Right.
on how much regret they had because of the war. Well, you'll never convince anybody that knows anything about history, because when you're committed to go to war to protect your state's rights,
Right.
you don't have remorse.
Right.
You intend on winning.
Right.
Okay, you just don't step off and go, I'm
I
really
think
not,
I'll shoot some people today.
Yeah, I'm not really quite, and then walk it back.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
like, remorse for a winner is like somebody who's pissed off that they won.
Right.
Get the fuck out of here.
So what they do is they rewrite this and they teach your kids this shit, and then the kids come to be adults and they're already brainwashed with this mantra of, well, it really didn't happen that way.
Well, then you can make the next incremental change in that
Sure.
in that link of logic that you're trying to build.
Sure,
Right,
that's that eighth of a turn.
1/8 of a turn.
One eighth of a turn at a time. So yeah, it's really funny because we really enjoy the fake news stories in the sense of like, got one here: hairdresser arrested for making voodoo dolls from customers' hair.
Awesome.
I like interesting reading when I'm having my my vodka.
I'm telling you,
juice.
yeah. I mean, this stuff does make for it. It's like a web. Okay, it's like a spider or a cobweb in your house. How many flies do you see in that thing?
Right.
Quite a few.
Right.
Can you look away?
Yeah. Oh, I
Because
can.
I'm always looking for the next thing to crawl in that web.
Oh, for sure.
Sometimes I might even throw something in it.
We're gonna buy Grandma Bug Zapper for
Yeah.
Christmas. I think that would fascinate him for hours.
Here's how you make it fascinating for Sam. You put the bug zapper on the porch and you put a security camera on the bug zapper.
Right. There
And you
go.
make it wireless so he can watch it on his phone.
There you
I
go.
will stream that.
Yeah, it was live streaming, man. I'm telling you. But knowing Sam, he would put like an ear of corn out there and try to get like a raccoon
Oh,
or
yeah.
a squirrel to crawl up
How
on that
big?
thing.
How big of an animal would this thing fry?
Like how much voltage does it
Yeah.
take to take the large quarry down?
So what ends up happening is the 110 plug doesn't work.
Right.
So with his utilities experience, what's he doing?
Dude, let's get some 3-phase working
Yeah,
on
he's
this
at
thing.
3 in the morning. He's got a 3-phase switch. This fucker's glowing. Airplanes are circling his house, thinking it's the airport.
My neighbor's porch light dimmed.
We're gonna need a transformer on 8th Street again,
So, I'll
please.
tell you. So yeah, I mean, and that would be a great fake news story.
It would.
Literally, a man loses his mind.
Well, we've already painted.
Ex-vet executing animals in his backyard.
Exactly. Ex-vet is a cannibal. He's eating
Yeah.
people.
Oh my
Got a
God!
person
Yeah.
out in there.
3-meter readers have disappeared in
Right.
the last.
Look at there. See, we've already drawn the narrative. By the end of this, on
Yeah.
his obit, it'll
Yeah.
be this man ate people, was cruel to animals.
Yeah.
Terrible.
And the sad thing is some group of idiots somewhere are, one, going to worship him for it.
Yes.
2, they're going to spit on his grave for it.
I'll only feel honored if there's a copycat, though.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So that again, this is where these spin cycles create such a, I don't know, what would you say, a chasm between the stark reality.
Right.
And it's much easier to believe the fantasy side of it.
Sure.
If you look at all the things that people watch, and I'm going to knock on some shows probably you guys like, and it's just because I'm using it as an example.
Are you about to knock some porn?
Yeah, well, no, porn, that's real.
Okay. All right, then I'm
That's
not going to be
dark
offended.
reality, bro.
Yeah, it's dark reality, bro. Yeah, because everybody has sex like that.
Yeah.
But Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Okay, Game of Thrones. You look at like True Blood. Okay, you look at shows that are fantasy based related. The whole vampire thing, the whole medieval thing, the whole Game of Thrones, the what's her name, The Hobbit, and all that stuff like that.
Yeah.
People get wrapped up in that fantasy because it is an escape from realism.
Okay, yeah, I get.
Okay.
I can follow that.
So
logic.
when you have masses of people that are thirsting for that kind of stuff, I mean, let's be honest with you, or with everybody here. 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
Okay, how many people think that's just wonderful shit? A bunch of them.
A bunch of women
Okay.
bought the books.
Yeah, until you want to do that at home.
Right. And then it's like, you're doing that
Yeah,
to
I'm
me?
not doing that. Yeah, so
Hit
again,
me with what?
exactly. So the whole
I don't think so.
the whole fantasy thing now is taking on this alternate life.
Yeah.
So it's suspending the harsh truth of raising taxes, cost of insurance, cost of food, troubles at work. So people they know they can transport you away
Yep.
from that reality, so that now you're ignoring the real news. You're not seeking out real news. You're looking for like, fuck, this has been a horrible day. I gotta get away from this.
Right.
I
Well,
gotta
the
go.
baby boomer generation has been taught and has taught since then that conspiracy is actually reality. I mean, if you look at
Right.
it, that's kind of where that thought process takes hold in America, I think, and in American media. I think if you go back to that time and start looking, it starts with Kennedy, obviously, and the conspiratorial nature of the media, which is what we've kind of been discussing here.
Because at the time where you have mass media going on. too.
Exactly. That's the uptick
I
of
follow
that.
that.
The
I follow
ever
that.
you had Walter Cronkite and all those guys coming
Yeah,
out. That was
Talking Heads,
he
yeah,
was
yeah.
like the man.
He
back in the
was,
day,
but if
yeah.
you look at Walter Cronkite,
Cronkite, yeah.
Thank you. I'll spit it out here. He did. That was a guy that actually told you the news.
Yeah.
He had political leanings and all that, but he actually reported the news to you.
basically read to you what was going on.
Look at where we've gotten to since then. You see what I'm
Right.
saying, though? It's
Sure.
been this incremental shift of generation to generation,
Mm-hmm.
and now you've moved us to this. I want to believe in whatever you're telling me to believe in.
So 24-hour news cycle really.
That's where it amped up.
Yeah,
I
that's
believe
really the
that.
game changer.
What I was telling you earlier
Yeah.
is
It just looks like just slight efforts of erosion.
Oh,
Right.
for sure. Yeah. And so a lot of people confuse the Anchorman. And I'll tell you another story about that here in a
Ron
second.
Burgundy.
So I'll tell you another story about that here in a second. They confuse the Anchorman with the guy that's actually writing the news.
Yeah.
He's not. He's reading the news.
He's reading them.
That shit's written by people sitting all hours of the night writing this shit, saying
Absolutely.
you're going to read this.
Absolutely.
So speaking of Anchorman, we were at dinner with some good friends last night, and we were talking about just some of the stuff that Elizabeth Warren,
Yeah.
and Nancy Pelosi and all her bullshit. And it's like the news has turned into watching the Anchorman.
Yeah.
If you've watched the movie The
Yeah,
Anchorman,
yeah.
the news that we're seeing today is almost like they're living that movie.
Right.
But if you look at it, you can almost say that like televised news and written news,
Right?
all of those personalities that report it and getting on, they're almost like they're the foot soldiers for the policymakers
Right.
and the lawmakers.
And they are.
Yeah.
They are. That's why they pay them so much. I mean, we've come to the point in America to where when you take the jobs where there's plentiful jobs, you can have a choice. Say, look, I'm not following your bullshit. I'm going to go get this job.
Right.
So you don't have that anymore. Okay. So you've got jobs that pay, like, we'll say $50,000. Then the next leap is up to $100,000. Then it goes up to $200,000. There's really three defined lines there for professionals.
Right.
Then you have your minimum wage owners or minimum wage workers that are making much less.
Right.
And some people say that they have to have 2 or 3 part-time jobs just to pay their rent, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we have these 4 levels of income. So when you go to school, interview for a job, and you end up getting one of these great jobs in a company, you're going to follow the political line of the company.
Absolutely. It happens every day.
Your belief isn't going to be a part of anything because you don't want to get rid of the house,
Right.
the cars. You want your kids to go to private school. You want to take vacations every year, and you want to be able to retire.
You're selling in a sense, you're selling your morals for
Pretty much.
a job and a house and a pool and an SUV.
Pretty much. I listened to an excellent podcast not too long ago that Mike Rowe did on what 300 Dirty Jobs taught him.
Yeah.
And he was talking about that very thing. He was like, everybody's swimming upstream to get these great jobs, but they end up bending to the political climate of the companies they work for. where he went the other way.
Right.
Instead of swimming upstream, he swam back downstream and became quite successful at doing it, obviously. But yeah, so you're looking at the big trade-off here. Okay, again, you have the comforting lie versus the unpleasant truth. Who wants to be the guy that walks in the office and tells the boss the bad news?
Right. Nobody.
Nobody. Because what happens?
You were the guy that did that. I mean,
Yeah,
you
I've
know
done
all
it.
about it.
Yeah, I've
man.
done it multiple times.
And from
So
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
Yeah.
how many times we
Yeah.
sat down and talked
Oh,
about
yeah,
that, and
it's-
it goes wrong.
it goes wrong every time.
see, even at the
Yeah, but I'm not going to sell out who I am.
Right.
even at the data farm, like
Yeah.
because I'm in an area where all kinds of equipment fail all the time.
Right.
I was used to being the guy that calls my boss and says, "Hey, we just had a piece of equipment shit the bed." And the thing is there's no minor piece of equipment.
You know, and it's funny because I worked at that same data farm that you worked at and had totally different experience there. It was funny the night and day.
Yeah.
Because
Well, I'll explain that when you're done.
yeah, two different segments of the data farm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
'cause you
I
were
had the corporate environment side of it,
Yeah.
whereas you had
policy and all.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
shit.
So I had to deal with the decor,
Right.
the decorum of it all. You
Mm-hmm.
know, are you wearing the company shirt today, or are you parked in the company parking
Because your
spot?
boss was exactly that guy.
Oh, I wanted to choke that guy by the end of that. I was like, dude,
Right.
I can't stand you. And it's funny, I gravitated towards your boss, which I ended up being good friends with and wanted to come work in that field.
Right.
I mean, it's
Right.
amazing how people that have I'm like you, Ken. I don't want to sell my morals or my ethics for
Can't
anything.
do
You can
it.
bite my ass. It's kind of how I look at that.
I can do that, yeah.
And I gravitated toward the guy that was like, "Hey, we get stuff done."
Because we have one side that's reality, the other side
Well,
is perception.
okay,
Fantasy,
so
exactly.
here's the difference between the two. Okay, in his job, when the power's out,
Nothing's happening,
absolute.
baby.
is absolute and undeniable.
Yep.
On the corporate side, it's all about perception and presentation, and it all goes with political climate. Because at the end of the day, what was your job?
It was there was a manual labor side of it, but it was face and presence. Is
Right.
a lot of what it was.
Right.
I mean,
so
it
you
was,
were IT?
I was IT, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I had to talk to people and present myself to people and
Right.
present a face of the company
On phone or in person?
on the phone. And sometimes they would bring clients in, but
Okay.
most of the time it was on the phone.
Right.
But you still had to toe this corporate structure.
Well, of course, because you're on the softer side.
Oh,
okay?
yeah.
So he's on like, we can't make money if the
Yeah.
power's out, and
Yeah.
you're a revenue generator by your presence. And
It's a
representing
perfect
the company.
dichotomy of what
Yeah,
you
they're
were
completely
describing.
diverse. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, because I've always been in sales and sales management, and basically just the entire top to bottom from manufacturer to distribution and selling.
Right.
And I can tell you that the biggest challenge you have are people's egos.
Yeah.
Okay, so an ego is
And that's
definitely-
either side. Now that is either side of that
Yeah.
coin, though.
It
I will
is,
say
but
that.
I can tell you on the utility side, it's
Yeah.
more of the neatness, maintenance, checking the
Yeah.
box. Because I can tell you can tolerate a guy in the boiler room
That's right.
that you have doing something that's out of public sight. You may not like him. You just keep him in the boiler room,
They would find a way to replace me quick, fast,
right?
and in a
Because of the face,
hurry. Right.
So what ends up happening, and the reason why we're going to go here is because of the ego. So when we start looking at things, money and power is definitely the great corrupter.
Right.
Okay, people are always, but that's actually easily attainable. Money and power is actually easy to attain.
Just fucking work hard.
Yeah, work hard, find the right, and then just plow through and keep everybody else out of it. But when you start looking at what's going on here, we have a lot of egos involved,
Yeah.
and they're big egos.
Yep.
They're huge. I mean, if you look at the city of New York, I would have thought I would have never lived in a day and time where it was okay to murder babies. But if you shoot an eagle, run over a protected animal,
Yeah.
or catch a fish without a fishing license, you're going to go to prison.
Hard time.
Yeah, but you can kill a baby. That
Right.
shit.
Oh, is this the deal about the
The abortions.
late-term
Yeah,
abortion.
Yeah, late term
thing,
abortion.
yeah.
I'm going. Are you
that
crazy?
that was going crazy on Facebook earlier.
Well,
on
it
my feed
should.
today.
It
Yeah.
should.
Oh, I know. I get that.
Because that's just flat out murder.
Yeah.
That is. I don't care what.
Up into the point of contractions is what they're
Yeah.
saying now.
Yeah.
I couldn't
So,
believe that. I mean,
I don't get too tied up. I don't get tied up in religion. I don't get tied up in politics in the sense of whether I'm a Republican or Democrat. I'm not a Trump guy. I'm not sponsoring Trump. I'm just telling you straight up what the guy does
Yeah.
and what he stands for. And we're talking about what these laws are. When you break moral laws like that and
Yeah.
you start bending and shaping the moral fiber of the country based upon a belief system that you're promoting through fake news stories,
Correct.
through passing legislation through the Supreme Court, and by basically forcing people with legal bondage,
Right.
in the sense of forcing you to buy health insurance. The thing that blows my mind is the fact that you had a president that was vain enough, his ego was big enough to name it after himself.
Yeah.
Are you
Obamacare.
fucking? Yeah, are you fucking kidding me?
I've seen him refer to it.
It was. I mean,
Affordable Health Care Act.
Yeah.
But I.
Everything you see is Obamacare, and its reference is Obamacare.
Right.
There's a circle with a flag that looks like fruited plains or whatever they call that shit, and then it says Obamacare on the end of
Yeah.
it. I can drive you to 5 places in the city of Houston and have those banners up, and they're still promoting as Obamacare.
Right.
But here's the thing: you would be penalized or fined if you didn't pay for it. Yet, we're fighting over a wall that costs less than a football stadium.
Right.
Less than a football stadium. And most of this wall is covering private landowners' property.
Not only that, they've in the past, the same people, because it's not like the Senate and Congress changes hands that
Right.
much, voted for $10 billion over the $5 billion that they want to approve now.
Right.
They already voted for $10 billion, said let's get this $10 billion going. It just got misallocated.
Yeah,
They
again,
didn't want to. They didn't want
How
to.
much of that is pork?
Yeah.
it's a battle of egos.
It is.
Again, it's Trump's
Goes
ego.
right back to that.
Trump's ego versus Pelosi and Schumer's ego. And honestly, Pelosi to me, she should have been out of that job 20 years ago.
Oh,
I mean, when you
absolutely.
look at
Yeah,
her
that's-
dad and her uncle and how corrupt they were in Baltimore and
Yeah.
all the shit that they used to pull over there, and look how she's involved with labor and stuff in her state, and all the money she pulls in, I'm
Yeah.
like, come on.
You got to ask yourself why a rich person is pulling so hard for poor people to come in. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, they're
That's got to be one of your. Is it to make you more rich? Because I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, because really, if
what does she
Thi-
benefit
this is
by?
kind
She's
of-
not
this
looking
is-
out for you.
this
Yeah.
is going to sound horrible,
Nah.
but money
Mm-hmm.
gives you the ability to make more money.
Sure. It takes
Um,
money to
but-
make money. There's no doubt.
But these people approach it in such a way that they don't care who they walk on
No.
to get to it. That's
Obviously, I mean, they show you that every day. I mean, it's stunning. I can't. And here's the thing: is they rope you into it to believing that the person that's pulling the strings here is on your side.
Oh, yeah.
The masses believe that. That's what gets me. Is they're dumb and they're just dumb enough to believe.
Well, the greatest trick is to convince the other side that they're the ones that are evil.
Yeah.
Right.
While you're the one doing the dirty deed. And it's really sad because, we sit here, again, we have all this money wrapped up in news media. And look at your cable TV bill, for example.
right.
Okay, so streaming TV is really ramping up, right? They've got a lot of people watching them instead of cable. What started happening with that?
prices
Start
start
going
Yeah,
up.
prices
start
start
going
going
up.
up, yeah.
And all of a sudden, Netflix went from being driven by just movies and entertainment. Now it's got a political entity now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's-
what's funny is I read something the other day where, okay, so I was waiting for the first person to remark about pricing going up on these different services.
Uh-huh.
And this one guy, which I don't know why this was comical to me, but he said, the next price increase Netflix experiences, I'm out.
Right.
And I'm like, it's the next one.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
this one,
Yeah.
but it's the next
Well,
one.
it goes straight back to the comfort level of what we were talking about a while
Right.
ago. Of people,
Right.
how much of it are you willing to suck up for the price of your morals?
Right.
And at the end of the day, I mean, it's over money again. So now we're rolling into not just egos, but the fight for our tax dollars.
Right.
That's our money.
Yep.
Okay, that's not politicians' money. At the end of the day, you look at how much money they're wasting. You have a president, again, that steps in and says, we're not going to give money to Pakistan. We're not going to give money to this country. We're not giving money to Syria. And he's saving all this money by not giving it away like the former president and presidents before
All of
him
them,
did,
yeah.
So what do they end up doing? They end up wanting to spend it on, what, DACA and all this other... I mean, come on. What other country can you go to?
God forbid you give it back to us or pay some of the debt that
Right.
you've grown
The
up
US
already.
has just
Yeah.
turned out to be just a cash grab.
It's a big ATM.
for every other country.
It is.
Right.
And it's all by political gain. So when you look at politicians that go in, and what's the wage of a politician?
Oh, roughly 100, 200,000. It's right around the 200,000
But
mark.
the influence they gain
Yeah.
is far outvalued
Oh, yeah.
over
So,
their salary.
so when I flew a lot for work. I mean, I'm like a multi-million mile business flyer.
Right.
And I would always hub through the big airports. Like I would hub through Newark. I would hub through Atlanta, and I would hub through Chicago and LAX. And so I had the chance to spend lots of time waiting to catch flights. And this is during the entire 17-year operation of the Gulf War, okay? Or the war in the Middle East. So I would always make time to go find a bunch of veterans or soldiers that were going back and forth at the USO.
Guys, yeah.
I would sit in a restaurant and I would just pay for lunches and visit with guys. And I'd ask them where they're from, talk to them about stuff like that. Now, I got to where I would sneak paying for them because they didn't want you to pay for their lunch.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll tell you what, you talk about honorable guys. I have not met one yet that when I tried to give him my first class seat or tried to do something for him, said, "Sir, I really appreciate it, but when I swore the oath to the country, United States, to wear this uniform, I promised I wouldn't use this uniform for any personal or financial gain."
Yeah, I'm not looking for a handout.
Right. Why are we not expecting that from our elected officials?
Right.
They're not actually our officials. They're our representatives.
Yeah.
They actually work for us.
You serve us.
They serve
allegedly.
us. Why do they go in there and make so goddamn much money
So
off of the office that we're paying them to work for us for?
I've got this huge bitch. So this thing that happened where a few weeks ago, where Pelosi had her trip canceled, going
Which was
to.
awesome.
So, but the thing that I had the problem with is, what was it, like 6 Congress people going?
Oh, she had an
Hold on,
entourage.
no,
it
but
was
it was-
80-something
But
people.
Yeah.
it ballooned up to, like, with them, it was like 92 people.
And
Yeah,
remember, they were coming from Napa. They were in Napa at a resort in Napa.
The part that I'm trying that floors
On our
me
money.
Yeah.
is I want to see the fucking manifest
Mm-hmm.
of who is on this plane and why does this
Right.
take this many people to go on this trip.
Right.
And
Security.
then to find out that there were
No, it wasn't,
So
though.
they never really fully explained who was on that manifest, but they did go backtrack through the Freedom of Information and found out that there were other instances where she would fly family members
Tons of them.
around.
So
on
where they-
on the dole of the
Right.
taxpayer.
Where they messed up was when they started complaining. She started complaining about, well, he compromised my safety. Okay. Okay. Well, she opened the box then.
Yeah.
Because now everybody got curious about, well, wait a minute.
Well, let's see what this
Yeah.
actually is
Yeah.
here.
So
Nancy, meet Pandora.
Yeah.
right. Here's a fake news story that went around, and I believe it's fake. I can't believe that it really happened, but there was a story about a Pakistani man that was arrested with explosives on his way to the White House.
Wow.
Okay, they said that there was a Secret Service FBI takedown of this guy.
Was this shortly after that?
It was at the same time. Okay, here's the fake. I'm not saying this to spread this. I'm just saying here's how the news works.
But it does seem
a little
rather-
suspicious.
yeah.
Why would Pelosi be loading up planes with people to go to the Middle East to meet with people, while this guy was headed to the White House to kill Mike Pence and Donald Trump?
Right.
So so if you let that story run, okay, so the news media had to kill that really quick. Fake
Right.
news or not,
Right.
it saw no light of day.
Right.
Okay, so it actually works against you because if you remember, Clinton got herself in trouble when she said something about fake news.
Yeah, she did. That's right.
Trump flipped that on her, and it was like everything she said was fake news because
Right.
he was able to prove that shit.
Right.
Whole thing about freaking dodging sniper fire. Oh my
Right.
God.
Oh yeah. Well, her and what's the guy's name? The news guy that was.
I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
God, I can't remember.
Charlie something or
Yeah.
whatever.
Is it
Yeah, I
Brian-
can
is
see
that
the guy's
Brian,
face.
Brian Williams.
Brian
There you
Williams.
go.
There you go. It was Brian Williams. So so the fake news thing, it's quite a tool, and because a lot of people want to believe in something, they don't want to believe what's true because it's too simple.
Yeah.
The truth, when it's in your face, is too simple. Like you were talking earlier about conspiracies and how conspiracies work. What makes conspiracies work is you just tell the story of what you did in a conspiratorial style.
Right.
All you have to do is use inflection.
And people want to gravitate to that.
Yeah, you use inflection and you just insinuate. And then what you do is you get what's called a perceived credible witness or two.
Right.
So that brings us into these media actors, these crisis actors that are all over the place. They got outed after, so there was this Nick Pugh guy.
Yeah.
Oh God.
That
Yeah,
Nick Pugh, which
yeah.
runs a acting school and he provides actors for like trauma,
Yeah.
fake scenarios and stuff like that. He showed up at the Newtown massacre.
Newtown is where he got started.
He was at the LAX shooting
Yep.
where the guy took the AK-47 in the airport, and I think there was another one he came up in somewhere as
Yep.
well. And then there's the nightclub shooting in Florida.
with the where he
the
went
gay-
into the
the
home
gay bar?
Yeah, the gay bar.
Gay
That's-
bar?
Yeah.
There was 2 guys that showed up at 2 other ends. One was at the Boston Marathon bombing, and one
Yes.
was at that. So you're looking at credible witnesses. So when you look at a company, we'll just say a news outlet. We'll say
Huh.
a popular news outlet. So I have a friend that's a cameraman in that business. Okay, so he's the dude that they wake up early in the morning, late in the evening. He has to run out the door looking like he just crawled out of the bed,
Right.
and he's got to be in that van with that camera going to the news story. Okay. They have sources. Okay. They'll have somebody that if you pull into a neighborhood and well, here, first let me tell you a story about a news story that went wrong. After the hurricane in New Orleans, what was it? Katrina.
Katrina.
So they had a news reporter in St. Charles Square, and this is a real story, no bullshit. They're talking about all the damage that happened to the old churches down there.
Right.
So they pulled this lady right off the street, and they were talking to this lady that was just right off the street, and he goes, ma'am, you're from New Orleans. Oh yeah, I've lived here my whole life. He goes, it's terrible what happened to all the churches down here. And she goes, yeah, that is pretty sad, but I like Popeye's chicken much better than churches. So this is for real, made the news. And so what you do is you minimize that live interview mistake by having a standby actor
Right.
that comes in and helps
Says,
you.
oh yeah, it is
Yes.
terrible what happened to the churches. My church burned to the ground in
Yes,
blood.
he
Blah,
covers the gap
Right,
that fits the narrative. That's where these people show up. That's where you go, man, I've seen it. Because I've watched news before and go, yeah, I've seen that dude somewhere before.
Yeah.
And that's what you're starting to see with these news outlets. And it's easy for them to do because reporters are always trying to climb up that ladder.
Right.
It is a dog-eat-dog world. We had a friend that was a reporter here in Houston, and she moved off to Dallas, and now she's off in another city somewhere. And she told us straight up how much of a dog-eat-dog world that was.
Sure.
And it was a world of one-upmanship. It was like, well, you got to take one for the team.
So it only makes sense to hire crisis actors at
Yes.
that point because they're going to make you look better.
Absolutely. The whole thing is about how you look.
All right. Goes back to that presentation thing I was talking about in my job. So-
Exactly. Well, it is because we live in a world where we're very prejudiced with our eyes.
Yep.
Our eyes are extremely prejudiced. It really is. I mean, the way we look at people. You look at somebody and you go, oh, that guy can't possibly be smart. Look at him.
Obviously, go back to the story we just saw with the kid in the hat. I mean,
Right.
that totally tells you how
for sure.
prejudiced your eyes are.
So I guess when we look at the whole media makeup of it, I would say that spend time looking at this stuff. Do your homework. I mean, dig deep and find out what's really motivating it. Because at the end of the day, it could be this whole political agenda to make the president look bad. Okay, make everybody feel guilty about whatever rage or guilt that's out there.
Right.
All they do is bend you back and forth. They just make you feel uncomfortable with stuff. Okay, so the unpleasant truth
Yep.
drives you to the comforting lies.